Thanks so much for watching. Now I'd like to introduce Michelle Mawby. She is going to talk about how to avoid the biggest design problems in kitchen and bath, and she will introduce her panel. Thanks.
Hi, back again. Thank you all for coming. Good morning. My name is Michelle Mawby. My company is Lucid Interior Design. I'm a trained interior designer with over 18 years experience in the business, and I've been lucky enough to live and work around the world. I've also been lucky enough to host my own TV show, Weekend Reno. I've designed for Discovery Channel's Junk Raiders, and I've gotten to share my love of design with the country on the Marilyn Dennis Show and on Stephen and Chris. And I am a member of NKBA, also of IIDA and Arito, and I am privileged today to be asked by the NKBA to lead this panel with these 6 experts about really the foundations that will help us as designers and decorators to have kitchen and bath projects that go smoothly. I've asked these experts to communicate with us what are some of the biggest problems they have when dealing with us. So it's basically trying to help us, get along with our trades a lot better. At the end, we're going to get to speak to Alexandra Klich also at the end of the table. She is an NKBA certified kitchen designer, and she's been doing this for well over 20 years. She told me not to say that, but. And we'll also have a lot of time for your questions too, so don't worry about it. We will have a question and answer period at the end. So let me introduce the rest of our panel. We are all NKBA members, and my first panelist here is Amy Dillon from Aya Cabinetry, and she's an expert in the cabinet business and is going to talk to us about that. Anna Binetti from Tasco is our appliance expert. Sara Rooney is our countertop expert from Saragree. Carmen Kodric of Waterworks is our plumbing expert, and Daniel de Oliveira from Men at Work is our contractor expert. So I'm going to start with Amy. What do you find are the most important things for designers to know when they're working with a cabinetry company?
I think the most important thing to know is to meet the company that you're working with and really understand their product. You want to know any limitations that they might have and things like, are they custom, are they semi-custom? That's important because you don't want to get into the project and then find out that they can't meet your needs as far as the design and what you're after.
What's the major difference between custom and semi-custom?
So with custom, mainly the cabinet company can provide anything that you're looking for as far as design of a cabinet, the size of the cabinet, even the color. With semi-custom, you're limited to their catalog of sizes and door styles and finishes.
Okay. And what else do you find, other than that, what's the other thing that you think is really important for designers to know?
It's really important to understand the process and how that cabinet company works. So you want to know timelines. How long is it going to take to obtain a quote? From there, how long is it going to take to book them to come out and do a measure, to produce the cabinets? You want to know all this information up front because projects start to go quickly and then all of a sudden you're under the gun, and you want to make sure you've allowed enough time to properly go through the process.
What do you think are good averages for, say, obtaining a quote? Like, how long should we expect? Like, we all want it within 2 hours sort of thing, but how long realistically?
Yeah, typically you should allow at least a week to get a quote for an average size kitchen. If it's a larger kitchen, more detail, or say it's a whole home that you're getting cabinetry quoted, that could take longer. It could take up to 2 weeks.
Right, okay. All right, thank you. So basically, what Amy is saying is really get to know the company that you're working with. We were talking before, and she was recommending just go in and meet these companies. Go in, and there's nothing wrong with you interviewing them and finding out what sort of company you want to work with. But being realistic with them of when you expect quotes. I mean, we always want things right away, and we've got clients that are always on us for things faster and cheaper and better. So, but to work better with a cabinetry company, really keep that in mind of they have deadlines as well too. too. And then the other thing is the timelines, of course. So, thank you. Anna. Okay, appliances. What should designers really know about appliances before they start designing a kitchen?
A basic understanding of just what's available. The innovations today are going faster than light. So coming into any appliance showroom, get a rundown, a 101 I call it, really helps you then design some new products into the kitchen. So basic understanding is utmost.
Okay, of new appliances. What about, we were talking before about venting. You find that venting is one of the things that you have the most issues with because people have already designed a kitchen and now you're stuck trying to make it work.
Ventilation is probably the biggest challenge, especially when you're doing a renovation as opposed to a new build. And in most older homes or existing homes, a 6-inch vent is what was maybe even smaller back in the day. So with a lot of the large cooking equipment, with a lot of gas burners and indoor grills, the ventilation requirements need at least an 8 to 10-inch vent. So if you're in a design where there is an existing vent that cannot be changed, you have to consider having your client look at the proper cooking equipment before they think that this is what they want to buy.
So it's not just the right vent, it's the right stove, essentially.
It has to match.
You can't do a 60-inch, gas burning stove if you can only put a small, okay, interesting.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
And the other thing we were talking about too was that you run into issues with designers is panel-ready, integrated refrigeration.
Built-in refrigeration, and if there's the slide there that I wanted to show. Again, an understanding of what looks right and what type of refrigerators can take custom panels. Everyone likes the integrated look, but we just can't get a standard refrigerator and put a panel on it. That just is a thing of the past. And the bottom picture there shows what you're going to get if you buy a standard refrigerator. The sides have to stick out. It doesn't look very nice in the kitchen. I think everyone can agree to that. So the top picture is a true built-in refrigerator. Having said that, again, your clients should be aware that these could be in triple in cost when they want that type of look, the full integrated
There's a
look.
huge cost difference. So, sometimes we do design with the bottom because of our client's budget, but they need to know that they're not going to get that top look with,
Standard fridge.
with a $3,000 fridge.
There are a couple companies coming to light with some half-decent pricing or priced refrigerators that can take a flush integrated, and we can be in contact if you need more information. You can contact me anytime regarding that. So
Okay. So basically, you want us designers to know what are the latest innovations out there, because they're always coming out with new things. We were talking about the under-counter elements today that there's always new things coming out, so do go into a showroom and they're always willing to help you out. They're also trained by the companies that they're dealing with to be able to teach us. We can't know everything there is to know, so if you really knowing what's out there to know what you can design with. Ventilation is a huge thing, knowing where, how, and why you can use it. And I think that's really smart of having that in mind before you start designing the kitchen, so that once you've designed the kitchen, then you've got a letdown and your client is let down because you can't actually do what you had designed for them. And then knowing about built-in refrigeration, what is the difference? Push-in, built-in, counter depth, integrated, all that kind of thing.
much to know.
Because, you find that people really, that's a big, where a client was expecting that top look and gets the bottom look and doesn't understand why. Thank you.
Exactly, you're welcome.
Very
Thank you.
interesting. And then Sara Rooney, let's talk about seams.
Ooh. That's a great reaction. Yeah, so seams sounds like you're all understanding the sensitivity that can happen when your clients aren't expecting seams. So certainly something that can be easily avoided. Ensuring that you have really good communication with your client, your fabricator, so that you understand where and if there are going to be seams. Islands, as we all know, are getting bigger and bigger, and designing within the size of a slab to create that island is important. Mm-hmm. The communication, though, is really key. You don't want to get to the point of an install and your client standing there upset because there's this seam.
What do you feel is the best way to communicate that with a client? Because you're right. I mean, they're always asking, why is the seam there? Why is the seam here? It's like, why do I have a seam in my countertop that's, a 20-foot run? So-
Amazingly enough, some clients don't understand that these pieces of stone need to come together with a seam. So again, the communication on the design side and the communication with the designer and your fabricator, really, really critical. And then communicating that to the client so they clearly understand not only that there's going to be a seam, but what that seam is going to look like, so you're setting the expectation. And then when you're selecting, if you can't avoid it, you have to have a seam, understanding what stone you're putting together, because it could be a fantastic seam, but the interruption of pattern can really highlight that there's a seam here. Like this photo behind you, Michelle, there's a seam in that L corner. You can't really see it
at all
because of the pattern. So when you're selecting the stone,
if your client's really sensitive to that, you can select within the stone to minimize it.
Yeah, definitely.
And do you think, when somebody comes in to do the template, do you think that maybe if the designer's on site, but also the client on site is a good?
You know what? Designers aren't always there, and when you're not there and there's a question to be answered, your client is then forced to make that decision, just knowing the limited information that they have. So we encourage you to be there on site if you can.
I've had that phone call where the client has been there and the templater has been there, and then you get that phone call. So yeah, I think, and that way you're not getting into that weird, why did the seam go here? Why did the seam go here? You're actually making that decision together. So,
and other things at the time of template come up, like the overhangs. All kinds of questions can come up. If you're using a 1.5 inch, so you've got a lamination through the center of the seam. Those kinds of things, really important. It's always about communication, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So, where your seams are going to go and the visibility, and I think you're absolutely right. If, as much as, our time is always, we're always busy and it's not always able, you actually eliminate a lot of those issues by being on site at that time. It's that half hour or hour is worth it to eliminate those 1,000 questions down the road.
And the countertop coming in, you're near the end of your project, so you've got probably an antsy client. So
they're fatigued
they're fatigued. They're fed up. They've been without a working kitchen. The other thing that I would add to this is at time of template, when they're coming in to do that template, is making sure that the cabinets, they're final. You're not coming in to put a panel on the end or anything that's going to affect the overall size that's going to come in and be installed. And having your sink on site is really is great, because relying on the files online, they're not always accurate. So
okay, yeah, that's one thing I always fight is the sink on site, but I get it. It's
pain,
you
but
can
it's
do
worth
it. There's a template, but very interesting. Carmen Kodric, plumbing. What do you feel are the biggest issues with designers when specifying plumbing fixtures?
Well, in the plumbing industry, I think for the fixtures and that is lead times. A lot of planning needs to go into what you're going to be choosing, because it's not readily available in many situations, and especially when it comes to doing, really designer kitchens and bathrooms. You're usually looking at premium products, which sometimes can take a long time to order.
What can those lead times be? Like, what are average and what's sort of a typical lead time versus a long-term lead time?
Like, for instance, if you're doing a special finish on a faucet, which now is becoming very popular to do, like golds and that sort of thing, like that could take up to sometimes 4 weeks is kind of the minimum. And we have one supplier, very, very beautiful premium product, which is like jewelry, and that can be up to 16 weeks. So you really have to plan ahead of time, plan, but then also make sure that the order is placed. Because what happens is I find a lot of designers will plan, and then what happens is the order isn't put in until the contractor says, I need it tomorrow. And,
that's true.
And then there's Ruffins. Like the Ruffin, when you're doing a shower and or built-in tubs, you need the tub at site before the drywall goes up. So, you know, and the thing is, once the rough-in is in the wall, you cannot change the trim that you're putting on the outside. Like every supplier has their own different rough-in and their matching trim.
And even sometimes within suppliers, their rough-ins will be different based on,
Yes.
yeah.
Suppliers are getting better and better at trying to
Uniforming
come up
them
with
or-
one
yeah.
rough-in that will fit like a number of their different finished pieces, but you still have to be very careful. And it's also communicating with your supplier, with your contractor, and everybody working as a team. I think that's where I see
Yeah.
best success.
So I'm under the impression, you know, as a bad designer, when you're always ordering things,
Last minute.
is it, you know, in my mind, I can always get the rough-in sooner than I can get the trim plates. Is that really
Yes.
true?
Usually, yes.
Okay.
So, but you've got to do the planning up front.
Right, right.
So most suppliers will always have lots of stock in rough-ins. So you can get the rough-in, but you also need to realize that you can't change the trim after that.
Of
You know,
course,
you
yeah.
could leave it if you're working on a full house and, you know, it's going to be a 6-month project. You could leave the ordering of the trims. But even that, like, just to make sure, and then there's things that get discontinued, right? So,
Right, if you've got the rough-ins there and then
Yep.
all of a sudden your trim is discontinued,
Yep.
yeah, that's kind of scary. And then you were also recommending that to have, in your mind, to have the, all of the rough-ins and all the on-site at the beginning of the job.
yes.
Like, I mean, at least after framing, right? Because it's got to go in before the drywall goes
We
up.
work with one customer where their project manager makes sure that everything is at site, that the plumber goes in, takes a look at everything and checks it out, and then calls in the contractor to actually do
That's
the work.
smart, because
Now-
then, you know,
yeah.
then, like, if there is something wrong with it, you have a bit of lead time to change it.
Exactly, but the other thing is do not leave things at site that are not going to be installed right away either, especially if it's.
I know, I've had things, I've
Like,
had a
things
toilet
go
stolen
missing
off-site.
all the time, and you know, but depending on who you're working with, like some suppliers will, you know, house the product for you, or if you can house it, or if your contractor has on-site facility where he can lock everything up.
Yeah, ask them
Those
for a
are-
lockup, I think that's
Yeah,
smart, because
yeah.
things do disappear.
Those are
It's
all
happened.
the things that you need to think about.
Okay,
ahead of
wonderful.
time.
So basically, your main point is, you know, the lead time for ordering things,
Yeah.
don't leave it. I think we do kind of leave it to the end, because it is sort of that decorative stuff that goes on, and I know I'm guilty of it, where you've got so much else to plan, but you really
Exactly.
do need to
And-
do it at the
yeah.
beginning. And, you know, I know, I'm sure everybody else is always being called, like, I need the Ruffins, and so.
And if it's a rush project, then you need to communicate that to your contractor, to your supplier, to make sure that that they have it in stock.
Because they can then lead you
Yeah.
to products too that are more, and you know, the more standard finishes and everything. Wonderful. Daniel, there's always a somewhat contentious relationship between designers and contractors. We're both sort of, we're always sort of fighting about, you know, one way or the other. I mean, I love my contractors, they're great. But what do you find are the biggest disconnects between designers and contractors?
Okay, there are a few points that I would like to mention here. First of all is the lack of details on drawings. Sometimes we get what are concept plans, but without much information,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
So that's, and then the contractors are left to try to figure it out how they...
So you're basically given a plan that's a concept, but people want a quote on it, but you can't possibly.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
or-
we are expected to figure it out how the materials are interfacing with each other, and again, more information on the drawings.
I've always said that you can never put too much detail on a drawing, because, you know, I always tell the people who work for me is, you know, dumb it down, like, so that the stupidest person out there is going to know what this
Exactly.
means. And
Yeah.
even though we know what it is, not everybody does. So really, you know, notate things over and over again on in multiplication.
Exactly.
It's
Don't-
really
Don't
important.
leave room for interpretation, right?
Exactly, yeah. That's why we design. We don't want you designing and, sorry.
Exactly. Yeah.
Making up your own decisions for
Yeah,
that.
That's the point. And related to this first point
Mm-hmm.
is this sense of the contractors should always be participating in meetings at their own expense. So just be sensitive about our time as we are at your time as well, right? So,
Very true, yeah. You shouldn't be expected to be in all the meetings that we're getting paid for when you're not actually being
it's actually
paid for it.
cooperation and flexibility expected from both
Yeah.
parties, right? So basically respect from each other's time, yeah.
Right. If I need the contractor in on a meeting, I usually try and bring them in at either the very beginning or the very end of the meeting so that they're not stuck waiting around. I don't think clients get that either. They don't get your time is worth money.
Exactly.
They think
yeah.
they're paying you a set fee and that you're just sort of, well, of course you're going to be there.
And again, I'm sure that most contractors are willing to help, but just
Yeah.
have that in mind, yeah.
I had a client ask a contractor to pick up an ottoman for her. Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing that we were talking about before too was designing within budget. That's huge. to
Yeah,
you.
so that's my last point, right? It's all too often it comes down to money, right? So designers are expected to achieve a certain type of design, concept, and sometimes they don't have in mind what the
Yeah, because a lot of times you've
budget
actually
for, right?
given the budget before we've even gone in. And then, we come in there, the client shows us this amazing, we have to have a knowledge of the budget too, because they see this amazing,
Exactly.
fireplace or something and say, design that for me. It comes with experience on our end too, is we have to know, like, you have to tell a client, that's not in your budget. Or let them know, if you do, that's going to add 10 grand to your total, and that's not
Certainly.
your fault.
Certainly. So I always say that bring the budget talk early in the process, right? So
Right.
that should be considered early on instead of detailing everything up and then getting to a point where okay, this is going
Yeah,
to be
everybody's time is wasted.
unachievable. Yeah.
So basically, the most important things for you are lack of details on drawings. So the more details, the better. I think we all know that. Respect of your time, that you don't have to be in on every last meeting, and that your time is worth money too. And sometimes that you either have to not be there, or maybe they have to pay for it. Maybe they have to pay for your time, and then designing within the budget, which I think is really, really important.
That's accurate. Yeah. Mhm.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alexandra. So Alexandra is an NKBA certified kitchen designer. She is also VP of Business Development for NKBA. So she's going to give us a little bit about, what the NKBA does and a perspective from that sense. As I said, all of us are members of the NKBA. What have you found are the biggest benefits of the NKBA?
The NKBA is comprised of manufacturers, distributors, designers, suppliers, small firms, medium firms, large firms. So what's great about it, it creates partnerships with these members. If you are an active member, you come out to meetings. We have 4 to 6 a year. And you're able to create business partnerships with your peers, which I think is the biggest benefit. The other big benefit as a designer is the education. The education hours that our NKBA offers is, can't really find it in design school. We only get a small portion in design school, whereas the NKBA focuses on kitchen and bath. And there's so much in the details of kitchen and bath that it ends up, you feel like you have a far better grasp on what you're doing as a
And it's so
professional.
technical, kitchens and baths, and you're right, we don't get enough training in school on it, and it's so technical, and it's one of the biggest parts of our business. Definitely one of the most expensive and profitable parts of our business as well. What do you personally find has been the biggest benefit of being an NKBA designer, certified designer, like actually being certified?
With the certification, I think it's having the technical training that provides you with the confidence of going into a project and being able to tackle anything that a client will throw at you, which can be sometimes.
To me, if I was, a client and seeing that you were actually certified in that would mean a lot. To me, I think this person is an expert in that field. And you take exams and everything to get to that point, right?
Yes, there's several exams that you have to take. So there's different certifications. There's the AKBD, which is the Associate Kitchen Bath Designer. You need 2 years experience and you write an exam. Then you get to the CKBD, you need 5 years, and then you do the drawing portion of the exam. And then the highest is the CMKBD, which is 7 years of experience. And you have to have your CKBD already and be 2 years in before you can even write that.
I see, okay. But if people want to know any more information about that, Alexandra and also Vince Kersey will be at the table outside if you do want to talk to anybody about the NKBA. It's a great organization. I've only been a member for 2 years, and you're right. Like I like the, even being able to sit down with people like you and just this conversation of what do you guys want out of us too, because that's it makes us better designers and it makes our projects go better, which is what is the most important thing. So
Absolutely.
well, thank you very much. Now we're going to have any questions that anybody might have for any of the panelists. There's one in the back there, Denise.
Good morning, everybody. So right now I'm working on a master ensuite. The design went well. Construction started well, and clients are very excited. And then we received the wrong hardware. For the shower. Instead of round, it came in square. And already these clients are very anxious. That was the first problem. I got it fixed right away. And then when we installed the shower doors, by mistake, they dropped it on the brand new tub and dented it. I took care of that right away as well. I got it replaced. But how do we finish this job with anxious clients and having a good feeling about me at the end with these problems that arise? Of course, we're always going to have issues. The bigger the project, bigger the problems. The key is I want them to leave the project with a good...
it's a tough one. I get where you're coming from. But that's one thing I always tell my clients is you are going to have problems. A trim coming in square instead of round, not a big problem. The tub, I think I wouldn't worry about it. As long as it looks good in the end, I think you're going to be fine, and they'll be happy with that. Clients tend to take it out on us, and they can be a little nuts. I hope there's none in here. But it's scary. It is. It's totally scary when something doesn't go right. My experience is, as long as you finish off that job strong, they in the end are going to appreciate that fact that you got all of those problems fixed. No, I tell clients from day one, there is no such thing as a perfect project. Something is going to go wrong. It's just how wrong and how we fix it. So I think you've done exactly the right steps. Finish strong and don't be scared by that. That's going to happen through your entire career. We spend all of our time fixing problems. That's what we do. Yeah, and accountability, exactly. As long as you fix it, they really, even if they don't show it, they really will appreciate it at the end. But it sounds like you've done everything right, but it's a thankless job sometimes. Anyone else? We've got one.
To the contractor, are there any materials and finishes that you would, if a client wants to purchase to save on delivery costs and markups? Are there any materials, like I'm thinking right now, plumbing would be something that I would advise the client as a contractor have responsibility to deliver on site or correctly. Any defects, so there's no running time on the substrate.
Well, there are a lot of variables on your question here. I would say that first it's whatever you establish on your contract, right? So just be clear on who is taking responsibility for for which part of the project, sorry. And plumbing, for example, what you said there, we as contractors, we often get a good discount rate from suppliers. So sometimes it's on the client's interest that we actually purchase that to get the discount. But again, it all comes down to what's on the contract, right? So establish that at the beginning. And
I would also say if you have a really good relationship with your plumbing expert, like, you know, if there's a store that you always go to or something, they are an incredible resource too, because they're there to, you know, something goes wrong, you email them and they'll fix it for you because they're invested as well. So that's something else is, you know, if you're looking for plumbing, is get to have your go-to person.
And have a team, like,
yeah.
I think communication is the most important thing between the designer, the contractor, the supplier. And if you're all working together on the same team, things go so much smoother. Like, I see it again and again and again. You know, when there's a disconnect between the contractor and the designer, that's when you see the biggest issues.
exactly.
Oh.
Yeah, the other lady has it down the road.
Oh, I'm sorry. My other question was, how much to the contractor do you appreciate that I do research? Say I choose a light fixture that the client wants, I'll find 3 suppliers, but you may have a 4th supplier. I'm going to get a price point, like how much the client is willing to pay. Do you appreciate that, or do you have somebody who will do that legwork?
Well, I really appreciate that you take on this work, of course, and it all comes down to what the clients want for their project. And I think from a contractor's point of view, it's really indifferent for us if whichever supplier you choose. Of course, we have our vendors that are most preferred vendors that we establish a relationship from many years working together. So sometimes we refer those vendors, but no, we're willing to work with other vendors as well, of course. Yeah.
Okay, I have a question anyway. I've had this come up more recently and just wanted anybody who has a good answer for this, really. Let's say the designer meets the client first, and the designer, I know there's some contractors who want a full design before they'll quote on a project. Or the client wants to have, we have to establish a budget for the kitchen or the bath or whatever it is you're working on. Sometimes the client will say, well, once we have the design, we want 3 quotes. Does anybody have any solutions for working in that sort of framework and trying to budget, but not having a contractor on board to give numbers? Are there any good solutions for that? Or what to say to the client, or how to negotiate that? Do you understand my question?
Yeah, I think you have to let them know that what you're talking about is basically ballpark budgets, because you're really not going to get a full budget until all the drawings are done and everything's in there. When I do the design first and then go to a contractor, I usually don't ask them to include things like the kitchen or the doors or windows, because we are going to pick that down the road. So the client knows that this is, usually we do it on like a build only, no supply, other than things like, drywall and that sort of thing. So a lot of times with those types of clients, and you're going to learn that from experience, okay, a house this size, that's going to cost me $30,000 to do the windows. You can do ballpark square footage budgets, but again, they're incredibly loose. Clients are always going to push you for that set number and that, the finite number. We can't do that. Even by the end of a project, that's why you always tell people there's going to be at least, a 10%, fluctuation in it, because a lot of it comes from what they choose from. So I would, it's, you know, it's what we're talking about here too, is having relationships with the different people, the different aspects. So, you know, having a relationship with your cabinet person. You may not go to them for every single project, but at least you have a relationship with them where you can call them up and say, hey, you know, Amy, I've got this kitchen. This is sort of what they want. This is the linear footage of it. What do you think, you know, can you give me a ballpark of what that's going to cost? And she would be able to do that. Or, like, you know, Daniel as well. Like, if once you, I think what we're talking about here and why we've got this panel, it's really about relationships. And the more you build those relationships, the more able you are to get those sort of questions that aren't, you know, absolutely concrete answered for you. But that's always an issue that we have. You know, I sometimes will go to a square footage cost and say, look, it's going to cost you approximately this, but don't hold me on that. That has to do with the flooring that you choose. It has to do with, you know, even like the insulation or the way that you build it, the engineering that goes into it. So I would say build those relationships with a couple, you know, go-to contractors. And then when you can go to them with a concept and just say, look, you know, I know we're only at the concept stage, but the client wants to know if this is doable, and I want to know if this is doable. It's like what Daniel was talking about, being within budget, you know, designing within budget. We don't know everything, so sometimes you have to ask that question, and, you know, go out for a coffee with them, sit down with them, call them on the phone, send them the plan, say, hey, I just need your help. You know, what do you think this would cost ballpark? But it's always going to be a ballpark until you actually start, you know, paying the money, actually. Does anybody?
Yeah, I have a question. Can you hear me? I was wondering if there is a way to avoid having the wrong proportion of faucet to sink, and if is there a formula in general, or do you go to is it the tap person or is it the sink person? I don't want to design another lovely ensemble that splashes all over, that faucets in your face, or it's just, you know, and I run into this also commercially. In fact, the hotel we're staying in right now has this problem. And it's actually in a lot of public restrooms, so I think it's a misunderstood ratio.
Yeah, or it's like if the projection isn't long enough on the, I hate that when you're at sink, but
the soap comes onto your arm while you're trying to rinse your hands, or the bowl's too narrow, or you can't wash your face in it, so on.
Yeah, to me, that would be poor planning. I think that if you have a source to go to a showroom or whatever, and you explain to them those concerns, they can help you work through it. And, you know, it's like a tall faucet and you put a deep sink, yes, it's going to splash a little bit more, but those are all proportions that should be looked at the time of design.
And you're usually going to be buying your faucet and your sink from the same person,
yeah,
so
like
ask them.
It's all under the same roof. So that's another thing I suggest is, you know, buy all your products under one roof. That makes it so much easier. The contractor will be happier. And you know, there's so much on the market. Like in our showroom, you know, what you see on the floors is like just a little bit of what you can get.
But I always find my suppliers, they are more than willing to answer any questions we have, no matter how stupid. And, you know, whenever I have a new designer come and start working with me, that's the first thing I do them is like, ask that person, go in and meet them. You know, I've actually, I've had Samira go in and meet you and talk to you on the phone. And like, if we don't know, you ask. Yeah. And you say, look, I'm looking for, my client wants something like this. If you can send that, if we send an email out to our suppliers and say, this is what our client's looking for. Do you have something like this, or this is what we're looking? And that takes away hours of work on your part to be able to do that. Again, it's the relationships of, you know, having somebody that you really like that doesn't mind answering, you know, your questions. We'll go here first. Sorry. This question is for Anna. Is this a setup?
No, but I am a fan.
Yes, I am too.
Anna, wow us. What are some of the latest features that are coming forward now on new appliances?
Steam convection just seems to be the biggest buzzword out there right now. Not to be confused with steam microwave. That does not exist. So we can't get everything in one, but steam convection will do everything that needs to be done. Microwaves are kind of taking a back seat in the appliance business today. If people can shove one in a servery somewhere or under the island to do some popcorn, like they prefer a heated meal. So don't expect a 2-minute zap on your leftovers. If you want to put it in, it's about 8 minutes, but it comes out like it's just cooked, because adding steam, that component of moisture back into your food with proper radiant heat, is the whole trick to reheating or even cooking, but just on a reheating stage. Again, just to touch on that microwave white sort of going away. So that's one of the biggest thing. Michelle touched on induction. That's the other. Again, the Europeans have been doing this for how long? 20-something years, and North America got on board maybe just over 10 years ago, but the benefits of efficiency, cleanliness, like how quick it is to clean. You have to be careful you scorch your food first time you use it, because it's so quick. It's faster than gas. If you spill something, you won't burn yourself cleaning it up because the surface does not get hot. You just have to have the proper cookware, and all you have to do is go home and test it with a magnet. You don't have to replace all your cookware. Cast iron is the best. So those are the two.
It's safe too. I have a lot of clients with
Absolutely
children who love induction because they're not going to have issues with their kids coming up to a burning gas, flame and sticking their fingers in.
On a personal note, my mom is 80 and she does all her cooking. I still do my own laundry. I swear I do. Anyway, but we're moving and I'm getting an induction for her, just she has bad vision. And it's going to have a knob on it. It's going to be easy because she can't lift the grates, number one. It's hard to clean, number two.
Right.
So induction is really taking where it should be in its place. Even with our electrical costs, it's still going to be way more efficient.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Those steam convection ovens, they make me feel like I could actually cook.
Absolutely.
They're amazing. That's why you need to go in and see these things.
They have computers built in. You literally hit the type of food you want to cook, and 3 seconds later it tells you exactly. You don't even have to touch it. Just hit start. So
there was someone back here. Sorry, who?
Yeah, I have a situation where I have panel-ready appliances installed.
Mm-hmm.
The cabinet maker won't put the panels on because they're not their appliances. The appliance installer won't put the panel on, and the contractor won't put the panel on.
It's time to put on your big boy pants.
Typically, the cabinet maker, that's their responsibility.
Yeah.
Appliance companies who have professional installers can provide the service as well. However, they won't put any handles on any wood because we don't want to damage the panel. But there are appliance installers who will put wood panels on. But in my experience, it's the cabinet makers should be putting the panels on.
And that's frustrating. You will find that nobody will touch something because they're scared of it. I agree. Find an independent installer who will do that, but it should be, or go after your cabinet company.
An independent cabinet installer?
No, an independent appliance installer. Because some companies will have their own installers to install their own products, and then some of them will put that. But if you call, you're going to have to call around. First of all, I would go after the kitchen cabinet company. I don't know why they're not doing that.
That's who I expect to do it.
Yeah. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Most appliance companies have qualified installers that will put panels on. So if you're really in a bind.
In fact, it's usually it's the kitchen people. It's not. But if you have to find somebody, you could find an independent kitchen installer as well, or an appliance installer will be your best bet.
I'm using all of those people.
I know, frustrating.
There's others.
I think we probably one more. Yeah.
Hi, Thomas from Canadian Butcher Block. We manufacture wood countertops and butcher blocks. We have a challenge with designers of educating them and training them about our products. So my question to you is, what is the preferred method for designers to learn about new products and innovations?
I find I don't really have the time to learn about that product until I need it. So that's always going to be a challenge for you of how do you get in front of us, because we're busy and usually we learn when we actually need that project, that product. I think contacting the companies, the thing that works best for my company is that when people just contact my company, and I usually have one person who works for me who is in charge of that, and then they tell me about it if I can't be there. So even if it's a more junior person that you're meeting with, don't be afraid of doing that. It's not a waste of your time to meet with a more junior person within a company. You can send out literature. Chances are we don't always have the time to read it. But it's when there's a need. But the way that works best for my company is people basically, just calling and making appointments with somebody on my staff. So yeah, don't be afraid of meeting with a junior, because that will trickle up.
The other way is to become an NKBA member.
Right. Sorry.
And do a lunch and learn.
Yeah.
Because we always want new members, but we also want people to educate our designers. As designers, we need to know the material as well. So come join us.
Yeah, no, great.
That's true, yeah, very.
That's good. But as designers, like, your preferred method, like, there must be a constant stream of information coming at you from all angles all the time of all these different products and innovations. So which method do you find is most effective? And which method do you prefer to learn from? And I understand it'll be different from designer to designer, but there must be some mainstream method that is widely accepted more so than all the others.
Yeah, I think you're going to have most success of, like I said, either making an appointment with someone in the firm and just being like, just keep on it, or even the drop by. Just drop by with product in hand and say, hey, look, I've got this. Somebody might have the time to listen to you a little bit, but at least you've got the product in front of them. It's in your mind, so that you know when, oh, that's the perfect product for this client. We've got that information there. We're a tough bunch to nail down to meet, I know.
We have time for a few more.
Okay. There's passing me the mic.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I prefer to get emails. I have a file that I just dump all emails that I get from new possible suppliers. And then when I am looking, to your point, I don't want to learn about it until I need to, or time to learn about it until I need to. So I will go back to that file and look first there before I start Googling and searching for butcher block, for example. So I'll go there first, see if I've got someone who's been in touch with me or tried to contact with me, and I tend to go through those emails first.
Yeah, emails are great too. It gets it in your mind, right? It's like, oh, I remember I got that email about that product. And
just one more quick point about the emails. If somebody doesn't call me first, I delete their email. Because I can't, the influx of emails is too much. So that's one good way, but if I don't know who it is, I won't open up the link because I'm afraid of getting a virus. So if someone gives me a polite call first and says, this is who I am, this is what I sell, and may I send you an email, then I'll open it. So that might be another good way.
Yeah, we're all different and all slightly neurotic, so. Anyone else? Sorry. Oh. Does anybody up here have anything to add to any of the questions? Or, all right. Wonderful. Well, I'd like to thank everybody for attending, and my wonderful panel. Thank you very much. I think it was really interesting information. Also, I'd like to thank the NKBA Ontario chapter for putting this seminar on. Jeannie Sasaki and Marla Baker, thank you very much. You guys were wonderful as our fearless leaders, and Denise with your microphone work. But thank you so much for coming, and enjoy the show.